It is Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Life in the Movies podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Ryan Kim. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This week, Jacob and I are going to be doing a bit of a recap on our 5 favorite movies of the year so far. It's going to be a lot of fun. Also going to be reviewing Jessica Jones episodes 4 and 5 of season 1. I was a good student. I finally caught up. So without any further ado, I want to introduce my main man, my co-host, Jacob Martin. Jacob, how are you, good sir?
I'm doing okay, all things considered. This past week, if you've been catching up on some of my recent videos, I unexpectedly tested positive for COVID, along with 2 other members of my family. There was a COVID breakout that happened in my church congregation. A good chunk of the members tested positive, unfortunately. Fortunately, the symptoms have been very small, very mild. The worst thing that happened for me was a scratchy throat. And I think my sister currently has a little bit of a cold at the moment. But I'm thankful that this time it hasn't been too awful. Like, we've just kind of you've just stayed at home doing basic stuff, resting, recovering, getting plenty of drinks we need, but we're doing pretty good. I've managed to have so many interesting stuff happen even while I've been off this past week being sick. My channel just hit 600 subscribers, which is awesome. I didn't think I would get that far on my channel, so so thank you to all who subscribed to my channel for that. I've done quite a few live streams this past week. Did the 600 subscriber Q&A. I did a live collab review on the Tom Hanks film Bachelor Party. I did another collab live stream with Jason the Old Millennial, and we ranked our top 10 music biopics, and I was a guest on Mike from the channel Did You See That for a discussion live stream with him and another guest. So it's been a very enjoyable week, considering I was a little under the weather, and I hope to continue to recover this week so I can get back to work and doing the things that I've been doing before I got sick.
Well, my apologies of you catching COVID. Thankfully, it was a mild case, it sounds like. But I have to ask you, which was more tolerable, COVID or watching Buddy Buddy?
Actually, I watched Buddy Buddy before I got COVID. The video dropped during the time I was sick. But I think I'd rather watch a bad movie than get sick, so I'll just say watching Buddy Buddy.
I had the assumption, because I watched this video a long time ago from Hats Off Entertainment, a very underrated channel, and the host there talked about it. It was in a video dedicated to the dynamic between Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, how they did not just The Odd Couple and Odd Couple 2, but they also did Grumpy Old Men, which is one of my favorite comedies. They did The Fortune Cookie, and you've covered a bunch of those movies on your Billy Wilder series. Mm-hmm. And when he came across Buddy Buddy, he said it's been lost. And I was like, oh man, that kind of stinks. But then you realize, oh, not even Siskel and Ebert liked this one. I believe in your review, you said that Siskel called it the worst movie of 1981, which, I mean, that's pretty harsh. And so I almost want to watch it, since you sent me the video on a source, which I will not say on here. I don't know who might be watching this. I almost want to watch it out of morbid curiosity, but at the same time, maybe not.
I would say check it out for curiosity's sake, because I think if you look at the percentage on Rotten Tomatoes, it's like in the 60s. So there's actually some people who do enjoy the film. But there's other people like Siskel, Ebert, myself, who didn't really find that much enjoyment out of the film. I thought the film was painfully unfunny. I think I only laughed maybe once throughout the course of the movie, and there was a sketch where Walter Matthau pretends to be a priest and his fake Latin I thought was hilarious. That was the only actual laughter I got out of this movie. Other than that, I just thought the film was boring, uneventful, and I thought the film was dull in its execution and tone deaf in the way it presented different subject matters, particularly suicide. And I also thought Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau had no chemistry in the film. And so, with all those factors, I thought it was a horrible movie. And in my opinion, it's his worst movie, unfortunately, Billy Wilder.
Yeah, that's really sad because I think he's one of the greatest of all time. So, I mean, I guess even the greats have their bad ones.
Oh yeah, there's a couple of Billy Wilder films I didn't care for personally. That was one, and I also really could not stand the 7 Year Itch.
Yeah, the only thing I know about that is that famous Marilyn Monroe scene with the sewer grate, or not the sewer grate, but the subway one. If you know the one I'm talking about, it's
Oh yeah, and I was disappointed when I saw that scene because you see the promotional images of Marilyn Monroe standing on the subway thing, and the vents thing are blowing up, and her skirts flying up, and a pretty attractive moment for a lot of people. And I've seen the promotional images. I'm like, oh yeah, that's gonna be a really that's an iconic moment in all of cinema. You watch the film, and the camera actually pans down when the vents or the thing flies up and it flies through a dress. You don't actually see the actual event because of censorship. And I was watching it and I thought that was false advertising. And that was part of the reason why I did not care for the movie. I just felt cheated.
oh well, as far as what I've been watching lately, I watched The Crow for the first time, which is a review up on the channel now if you'd like to check that out. And Jacob, I don't know if you've seen this, but if you have not, it's a candidate for Superhero Saturdays. I think you would really dig this one because it is fantastic.
Yeah, I haven't actually seen The Crow, but I did see your review of it. And seeing that and other, um, hearing a bunch of incredible things about the movie, I do need to check that movie out eventually.
I would say it's on Paramount Plus. However, it just got booted from Paramount Plus this just I believe yesterday. So find it in other ways if you can, but I do highly recommend it.
Yeah, I definitely need to check that one out because when you hear for years that it's apparently one of the best comic book films of all time, it definitely piques your interest.
Yes, most certainly. Well, I think this is a good place as any. If unless there are other movies you want to share, I think we should jump into Jessica Jones.
Yeah, it works for me.
All right, let's talk about Jessica Jones, episodes 4 and 5. Like I said, I was a good student. I caught up. I watched both 4 and 5. And Jacob, I don't know about you, but Daredevil got all of the shine when the Netflix series were up, and Daredevil season 1 is awesome. Let's not get that twisted. But Jessica Jones season 1, I would argue, is of equal quality. I think that might be a bit of a searing take, but I'm going to stand by that.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I don't know if I'd fully put it on par with Daredevil, but I think it comes really, really close, especially when we got to episode 5. By episode 5, I was all in on Jessica Jones and her obsession to take down Kilgrave. And the more I see that character, the more I'm like, David Tennant, you are unleashing the inner monster in you. And I'm really, really excited for this character. There's so much potential you can do with him. He is so twisted of a character, and Tennant plays that delightfully.
Yeah, the episode 4 is called AKA 99 Friends, and it's about a new case demands attention as Jessica tries to find out who's spying on her for Kilgrave, and Trisha's radio show yields unexpected consequences. This is, I believe, where we see Kilgrave taking real action against Jessica. It's been periphery stuff. Now it's like, all right, they're on a bit of a head-on collision now.
Yeah, definitely. It's the more the show dives into that dynamic, the darker the show gets when you realize the manipulative strengths that Kilgrave especially did to Jessica in the past. And it's an interesting show. That's for sure.
Yeah, what do you think of the Will Simpson character, the police officer? I'm not sure how to feel about him yet.
It's interesting because he was originally manipulated to attack Trish, Jessica's friend, who does the talk show, after Jessica openly criticized Kilgrave on her show. And after he realized that he was manipulated, he's trying to right his past wrongs, and we see that he's starting a relationship with Trish. I don't know if I fully bought the relationship, especially that soon, because there's distrust because of that. Trish originally distrusted him because he tried to assault her, but even though that was not in his own free will, I'd be a little hesitant to, trust somebody that, tried to kill me in the past. It's a little bit of a leap of faith. You got to take some time before you're like, oh, okay, you're not as bad as I thought you were. I can forgive you now.
Yeah, this episode introduces some interesting plot lines. Like, for example, the Wendy Ross Hogarth character, the beauty, the millionaire who hires Jessica. It's I I guess, should I spoil what happens? But basically, it introduces kind of a theme that I think the MCU has yet to capitalize on, and I think it really should. It's this idea that these heroes like saved everything. However, on the ground level, real people got affected. It's been a little bit here, a little bit there. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier talked about it a bit. In the first episode of Hawkeye, someone carved into a urinal Thanos was right. I think that I think Kevin Feige's planting seeds for possible like humans distrusting heroes, but I feel like it's been kind of, I won't go far as to say squandered, but I think it's definitely just sitting there and I'm just poking at it with a stick like, come on, do something. Because I think that would be a fascinating storyline just for public interest to just completely tank on the Avengers and to see what would happen from that.
I mean, even Jessica Jones is a bit cynical of the idea of superheroes, which we've seen hinted at throughout the course of the show. Like there was one, forget it was in 4 or 5. I think it was in 5 where Trish in a flashback was talking about, oh, what superhero name should you do? What costume should you wear? And she's like, I don't want to do that. That's
Yeah,
not me.
I believe her exact words were, "The only person who should be wearing that is trick or treating."
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this show takes place, I believe, a few months. It was released in 2015, but I believe it takes place a couple months, or not a couple months, but it takes place sometime after the Battle of New York. This is before Thanos, and I would have loved to have seen these shows like carry on in a post Thanos world, but unfortunately that's not what we're getting right now. We're getting Daredevil Born Again, so we are going to at least see Daredevil and She-Hulk in his own series, but I would have loved to have seen like the ground level kind of stuff, just see how the people are reacting. And it's been little kernels here and there, like I've said, like in Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, one of the Doctor Strange's friends is like, I lost my brother, I lost my cats. And I feel like that was played up maybe for comedy, but in the grand scheme of things, when you look at it from like a 10,000-foot view of it, you realize this dude lost loved ones due to Thanos. And I would have a feeling that the humans are going to be like, hey, these people are supposed to protect us. How did they let the purple Shrek guy win? And so I don't know. I feel like they would be a waste of time to try and not capitalize on that.
Yeah, that is an interesting plot line that you could do. I think there, like you said, there's been seeds of that hinted throughout different shows and movies within the MCU. And I wondered, since Phase 4 was meant to be the aftermath of the Infinity Saga and people's traumas from what happened post Thanos. I think it's an interesting thing you could embrace going forward. Things getting worse before they get better.
Yeah, and then in Jessica Jones episode 5, aka The Sandwich Saved Me, I love these titles. These titles are so
Yeah,
much fun. This there's actually a bit of a sting operation to try and get Kilgrave, and they almost get him. This is some of the best material of the show so far. I think this sequence was done really well. They almost get him, but then he gets away, and you're like, it's so close.
I know that was I was on the edge of my seat during that whole mission because there's an urgent need to defeat Kilgrave, who's been manipulating so many people. I think even in the previous episode, there was montages of people that Jessica had interviewed on stuff, people that Kilgrave had manipulated who were willing to come forward. But now Kilgrave is on the loose again because his suit had a tracker in it. I'm like, come on, you should have thought that sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like this episode how they treated the flashbacks. You kind of see Jessica Jones in a regular job, in a cubicle job, and how she quits in like the greatest way possible by blackmailing her supervisor and then just knocking over some file cabinets. Like those file cabinets are heavy. So I think these couple episodes have revealed to me at least that there's no ambiguity. Jessica Jones has superpowers. She has at least super strength, and she's more nimble than she gives off because she literally, I think this was in episode 4, she's literally like hanging from like an alleyway, like she's sitting like with her feet on the side of a building with no support or anything. So she's definitely strong and definitely more nimble than she is giving off of. So I don't know if this show is going to go into the origin of that, but there's no kind of cum see, cum saw as to whether or not she has superpowers. It's like, yeah, she's definitely a soup. That's for sure.
Yeah, and what fascinates me, I was under the impression going in that Kilgrave gave Jessica her powers. I thought he was testing her and other subjects because in episode 4, Jessica had that breakdown in front of people who were trying to blackmail her, and she said, "There's 99 of us," referring to other people with superhuman abilities. I don't know if she's talking about the Avengers or other superpowered characters like her that we don't have yet to know about. But I was a little confused because I thought Kilgrave was the one who gave her powers when it sounds like she had powers before she met Kilgrave. So it's really fascinating.
I think the 99 Friends one was sarcasm or trying to scare off the woman and her husband because they led her into the trap and she fought out. Another thing that's interesting is what they're doing with Hope Schlotman. Like she went into jail and she was like worried for her life. Now I think she's basically become institutionalized, or maybe not even institutionalized, but just like trying to act tough because there are bigger fish trying to eat her alive. Like there's a pretty disturbing scene near the end where it's basically, if you've ever seen Full Metal Jacket, where all the GIs like do something to Gomer Pyle in his bed, and it involves soap bars wrapped in towels, or towels wrapped in a soap bar. It's a pretty disturbing scene. So I don't know what they're doing with the Hope Schlotman character, but I was assuming, oh, she's going to be getting out of this, and like she'll be written off. But no, she's actually in more of this than I thought, and I don't know where they're going with this, but it's intriguing me.
Yeah, same here. I was a little disturbed when other inmates were ganging up on her, and that's something that you see happen, unfortunately, in a lot of these prisons. Pretty disturbing stuff.
Yeah, very unfortunate. But shout out to Erin Moriarty who plays her. She does a good performance, and she is actually Starlight. Starlight, yeah, Starlight in The Boys. So it's nice to see that she's been getting consistent work outside of Jessica Jones. So I was messaging you after I finished 5, and I was thinking to myself, okay, the first episodes have been good, but by now I'm like really invested in this. This has been a bit of more of a slow burn, but I'm really getting into this.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. It's been like a week or so since I've seen episode 4, but a lot of that episode, while there's good stuff in it, it was probably the most forgettable episode. But episode 5 was so good that it's actually making me more excited to finish the show and see where it all plays out between Jessica and Kilgrave. And also, I got a question. Was that Mahershala Ali that I caught at the end of episode 4? Because that looked an awful lot like him, who was talking about being Kilgrave's chauffeur.
No, I don't believe that was him. That was a different actor.
Oh, dang it. I thought that I was about to say, oh, Mahershala Ali in a Netflix show all
Considering
before
that
he played Blade.
considering that he is Blade in the MCU, that's going to be mighty awkward to explain. But
Yeah.
but no, I don't think that is him. But uh before we move on to the main event, I believe just a brief little side gag that I thought was pretty funny is just when it's basically the scene is that all these people are saying that they were corrupted by Kilgrave, even though they're totally full of it. But but the Carrie Ann Moss character is like, just please interview them to Jessica, and Jessica's like, fine. And so it's a great montage where she's interviewing them, and one is just a straight up like loon, like the dude from a convenience store. And then there was his mom who was like Kilgrave like corrupted my daughter, she's a virgin, and in she walks very pregnant. And so I'm just like, who are you trying to fool here? I don't know. I don't think I should have laughed at that as hard as I did, but I guess I just did.
Yeah, that was a funny little bit.
Yeah, and it was interesting, like how Kilgrave like covers his tracks, because we hate him, like he's a terrible person, but what's even worse is that he's smart. Like he's a snake in the grass. Like just when you think you caught him, he sheds his skin and slithers back in. Like shout out to David Tennant, he mastered this.
Yeah, some of my favorite villains are the ones who have that sharp intellect where you think you're onto him, and just when you think you have him, the villain is like 10 steps ahead and has outsmarted you before you even realize it. One of my favorite Star Wars villains is actually Grand Admiral Thrawn in Star Wars Rebels. I don't know if you've watched the show, but that character is just so smart. The fact that he's not a Sith, he doesn't have any force wielding abilities, but he can take down an entire alliance just from his intellect. And the fact that he's so smart and he'll defeat you under your very nose is just absolute scary. It's scary to think about, but there's people that are like that. And it's really amazing seeing some of these villainous characters and the way their minds work in a lot of these movies and shows.
I agree. Well, what did you all think of Jessica Jones episodes 4 and 5? Leave it in the comments. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Well, Jacob, let's dive into the main event for the evening. We we are officially past the halfway point of the year. It's crazy to think that. It feels like it's on just like crazy, like on crazy pills. But we are officially in August, and I think it was as good a time as any to talk about our 5 favorite movies of the year so far. And I don't know about you, but making my list was I had a rough idea of my 5. Like I knew my 5, but just placing them in the order of 5, it was harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, because there are some good movies that come out, especially if you have in this year. There's been a lot of good movies, and if you have a lot of favorite movies, sometimes your favorites stack with one another that it's hard to say which are your favorites and which are not your favorites. You got to have that decision making. You got to figure out which ones are going to be your favorites to finalize into your top 5. But yeah, I'm pretty confident with my top 5, considering all the movies that I've seen this year. But yeah, they are pretty stacked and close with one another.
So how we're gonna do this is I'll throw it to Jacob. He'll talk about his five, my five, and then his four, my four, and so on and so forth. And I think it goes without saying, but these are our lists. These are not the lists of the best movies of the year so far. These are our list, completely subjective. I know this being constrained to five, so there's it's going to be an interesting comment section to say the least. But I'm very comfortable with my five. Jacob, I imagine you're comfortable with your five. Are you ready to dive in?
I'm ready.
Well, why don't you go first? What is your fifth favorite movie of the year?
This is going to be one I haven't seen in a lot of people's rankings for best of the year, but I saw this film earlier this year on Netflix, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. And it's still one of the most clever original movies that I've seen this year. And I need to highlight it. So my number five is The Atom Project. It came out in March on Netflix, directed by Sean Levy, who previously directed movies like Free Guy and the Pink Panther film with Steve Martin. The film focuses on Ryan Reynolds, who travels back in time from the year 2050, and he ends up interacting with a 12-year-old version of himself. And there's like this big old time travel stuff going on, and there's some stakes with the end of the world that uh, happens in a lot of these time travel movies. The time travel stuff, I feel like maybe could have been fleshed out a little bit more, but considering it's about Ryan Reynolds interacting with a younger version of himself, trying to restore ties with his family, particularly his dad, I thought it was actually pretty compelling stuff. The dad is played by Mark Ruffalo. The mother's played by Jennifer Gardner. There's some really powerful stuff that comes into play in the movie. There's a really good scene where Ryan Reynolds interacts with Jennifer Garner's character at a bar. Obviously, she doesn't know that's an older version of his 12-year-old son, but it's a scene that it's a sequence where he wanted to tell her that he probably should have done before, you know, it was too late for him to actually say it in the present time, but he says it in this time warped version where he says, everything's going to be okay. Your son loves you. And that shows that even though Ryan Reynolds is known for being the jokey actor who makes fun of himself as Deadpool and being in other movies where he's pretty much playing the same character, there's a lot more heart in his performance. And I do have to really commend him for that. Some really inventive time travel stuff and visual sequences from Sean Levy, very enjoyable stuff. Ryan Reynolds, the kid who plays the younger version of Ryan Reynolds, is actually really, really good. He actually fits the mannerisms of Ryan Reynolds to a T, and it does look like Ryan Reynolds as a kid, and he actually did a really good job. This is a movie that has a lot of heart to it. There's a lot of inventive action sequences. It's a movie I wish we'd seen in theaters, but Netflix is Netflix, and they do what they do. So I'm hoping, there's talk of Netflix eventually doing theatrical releases on some of their movies to help their financial state. I think if the Adam Project came out in theaters, I think people would be talking about it more. But the movie is still really good. It's an underrated hidden gem, and it's one of my favorites of the year. So number five for me.
Yeah, I've still yet to see this one. I will. I've actually made a bit of a list of movies that I want to see or rewatch before the end of the year, and one of them that I definitely need to rewatch is on my list. But I've heard nothing but good things about this one, and just it kind of screams like something Steven Spielberg would have done, if that's fair to say.
Yeah, it does have an Amblin vibe all throughout. It does feel like some of the imaginative 80s family films like E.T. and The Goonies and Flight of the Navigator, among other things.
Very good. Well, for my number five, I'm going the hidden gem route, just like Jacob, except this is an HBO Max original, and I am choosing Kimmy as my number five. I have an entire review of this on my channel, so I've talked about it there, but just in general, I just love this movie. It was directed by Steven Soderbergh. You hopefully know who he is. Directed Logan Lucky, the Ocean's Trilogy, a lot of others. It stars Aubrey Plaza in this, or not Aubrey Plaza, but Zoe Kravitz. Thank you. Zoe Kravitz, in the same month, she would be in another movie on this list. I'm sure you can guess which one it is. And she plays this computer programmer, basically the non-union, legally distinct version of Amazon. And in one of those like Hey Alexa devices, she overhears some very dangerous activity going on, and when she tries to report it, she is stopped at every turn because the company is about to go public, and they basically don't have time for that. This movie is a very tense movie. It's really only about 90 minutes long, but you feel every minute of it. This movie takes place as if the pandemic, like, we're in the middle of it, so everyone's wearing masks and all that, and actually Zoe Kravitz's character, even before that, was afraid to go outside. She was kind of like a hemophiliac, I believe. So she was nervous to go outside to begin with, but add COVID to the mix, and is like, why even bother? I mean, like, I've got everything I need right here. So, but she knows that she needs to get this information to the right people. It's just that she has to go outside and talk to actual people in order to do it. Steven Soderbergh has his fingerprints all over it, from the writing to the camera work. There's a couple of one take sequences that I think are handled really well, especially one in a protest that I thought was very well done. It's definitely a hidden gem for sure, especially if everyone's out there is a Soderbergh fan, and if you're not, why aren't you? The man is a genius, and I can't recommend this enough to everyone.
Yeah, this is one that I missed out on when it came out. I've heard you say nothing but good things about this film, not just in this episode, but in the past. And it's one I need to put on my list, I guess. I need to stop sleeping on it.
Yeah, you should, because it is excellent. It's quite good. Steven Soderbergh supremacy. Like, that man can do no wrong in my eyes. Well, what do you have for number 4?
At number 4, I'm sure this is in your top 5 as well, and that is Top Gun Maverick. A very awesome film from director Joseph Kosinski, very underrated director. And I think of the movies I've seen from him, I'd say this is the best one, though I would argue Tron Legacy is pretty underrated as well. Obviously, this is the sequel to Top Gun, and a project that I was skeptical on for the longest time. When this was announced, I'm like, really? We're making a Top Gun sequel all these years later? Are you going to try to make a dark, gritty version of a cheesy 80s film? How is this going to work? Consider me surprised when this movie not only turned out to be miles better than the original Top Gun, but one of the best movies of 2022. How is that even possible? But I think because you got Joseph Kosinski and Tom Cruise who team up together to create a compelling legacy sequel that has all the ingredients that made people love the first movie so much, while also, intensifying the storyline, like telling an intense mission and the urgency of it all, and keeping the characters fresh and vibrant throughout the course of the movie. I enjoyed Maverick as a character a lot more in this movie. Somebody who's older, has all the hallmarks that made Maverick a fun character, but he's older and has a lot more regrets. And there's a lot more compelling layers to his character in this movie. And I love the friction, especially with the character, Miles Teller's character, the son of Goose. Like, that friction I thought was very well done. It's no secret that I love practical action, and all the action set pieces in Maverick were phenomenal. It was awesome seeing Tom Cruise and the other actors actually work hard to do the training, to actually fly the planes and be a part of the stunt work, and actually deliver on such an exciting roller coaster of a movie. This is exactly what a popcorn blockbuster is supposed to do, while also having all the feels and heart of a great story in general. I was pleasantly surprised by this movie, and it's one of my favorites of the year.
Well, this one is on my list, and in the words of the top 10 show, I'm going to punt this, and when we get to it on my list, I'll give my thoughts. But yeah, it's pretty high on there. That's all I will say. But one note before I move on, Joseph Kaczynski needs to direct many different things, and I have not seen Spiderhead, the Netflix movie. I haven't seen that. I've heard kind of mixed things on it, but I will go out of my way to see it. But I've been a fan of that man since the very beginning. I am a frequent defender of Tron Legacy. I think that movie is better than it gets credit for. CGI, like on Jeff Bridges' side, which is not the best. Like I love the look of that movie, and I think it's a lot smarter than people give it credit for. I love Oblivion. I love the look of it. It's got a solid story, but it just jaw-dropping visuals. It looks so good. And then my favorite, well, before Top Gun Maverick was Only the Brave, which is one of the best disaster movies I've seen in quite some time. Loaded cast, beautiful visuals. I could talk about Only the Brave for hours, but let's just move on to my number four. And this might be a bit of a weird placement on this list, but it's my it is my placement on the list, and it is The Batman. Now, when I initially reviewed this, I gave him my highest grade, but there was some parts of it that I was like, I'm not so sure about that. And I'm still not so sure about that, but the rest of the movie is so good that it almost kind of cancels out my general feelings. It's gotten a lot better the more that I have thought about it. Matt Reeves really took a different approach with this one. It's a Batman movie. It has the recognizable iconography, but I love how he made Batman, but in like a David Fincher world, if that makes any sense at all. I love how Robert Pattinson took to the role. I love Paul Dano as Riddler. Like it balances everything so well. The movie's surprisingly balanced for having basically two villains, and I won't spoil it if you all haven't seen it, but basically two villains. And I love how everything is done. I really do appreciate it, and I'm so psyched for the Batman too. Make it Mr. Freeze as the villain, you cowards. Anyway, Jacob, you go.
The Batman is on my top five as well. I'll explain more of my thoughts, but I do agree it is a fantastic movie. I It's one of my favorites for sure, and one of the best Batman movies we've had in a while.
Very good. Well, we'll get to that when we get to yours. So, what is your number three?
Well, number three is another comic book movie. It's my other favorite comic book movie that's come out besides the Batman, and that is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness in the MCU side of things. Of course, two words why I love this movie is its director, Sam Raimi. Need I say more on why this is an awesome movie? Sam Raimi, the guy who gave us an awesome horror trilogy with The Evil Dead and an awesome comic book trilogy with Spider-Man. Here he kind of blends the two genres together. You get a lot of superhero action with Doctor Strange taking on fantastical creatures and saving the world. And he mixes a lot of horror elements in there as well. Like you have a supernatural threat that's in place throughout the course of the movie. And there's a lot of disturbing implications that go on in this movie. There's actually some brutal kills that I was shocked to see take place in a Marvel movie. But hey, you got Sam Raimi behind the camera. He actually went full force on this one. You can tell this is Sam Raimi first, Marvel trapping second, and I respect that, especially as a pretty long time Sam Raimi fan. But as someone who liked the first Doctor Strange but didn't love it, this is my Doctor Strange movie right here. Like I enjoyed the journey that Doctor Strange goes on. You know, he still has that ego, but he sees that, oh, I do have mistakes and regrets I need to take care of. Maybe I need to figure out some things, rethink some decisions that I'm going through throughout this journey of being in the multiverse. Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda, best I've seen her in an MCU movie. She stole the entire movie, and I loved everything that they did with her character. America Chavez was a fun character. I enjoyed some of the cameos along the way. The movie was paced so well for a movie like this. I think my only gripe, and that's because I've seen another multiverse movie from another studio, but that other multiverse movie I felt like embraced the multiverse of madness title than the Doctor Strange movie. But Sam Raimi still got to make his own MCU movie. There's so many cool sequences throughout the course of the film. There's a battle involving music notes, which blew my mind. It was a mix of mind blowing camp that only Sam Raimi could get away with, and he even does Evil Dead 2 homages with Zombie Strange, and I'm like, yes, give me more of this, please. Some people didn't like this one, and I mean, to each their own, I guess. But for me personally, of all the Marvel stuff that's come out this year, Multiverse of Madness is easily my favorite so far, and it just happened to make my top 5 of the year.
It's definitely on my top 10, but it just barely missed my top 5. I just like Kimmy just a bit more. But credit where credit is due. Kevin Feige, when he hired Sam Raimi, he was like, all right, Sam, we're going to give you Doctor Strange. The handcuffs are off. Go to town. And this is Sam Raimi going to town. Like, this is a Sam Raimi movie through and through. Like, Bruce Campbell even has a cameo in this as the Pizza Papa. The Pizza Papa. Like, that's just so good. And yeah, like I said, if this were a top 10, it would definitely be on my list. However, it just barely missed the top 5. But that's not a detriment. I do love this movie to pieces, and it has gotten better the more I've thought about it. It's easily the best Scarlet Witch we've ever seen. Like, Sam Raimi gave her due by a significant margin. I think that she was handled so well.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
So my number 3 is the other multiverse movie that you alluded to, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And shout out to that movie. It just crossed $100 million at the box office. It's a very good day to be A24. That's all I'm going to say. Uh, what can I say about this movie that hasn't been discussed by literally everyone? I think it's the consensus movie of the year, if we're being completely honest. Now, there are 2 more movies that I like just a bit more. However, I still think this movie is just a work of art. Just Michelle Yeoh just deserves everything. Like, she deserves the world twice over. She crushes it in this. And for being such a movie about worlds with people that have hot dogs for fingers and just the craziness there. The heart of it, it's a very grounded story about nihilism and how like, what are we doing here? Like, in all seriousness, we're all going to just be we're going to be forgotten about. But at the same time, with that knowledge, you should try and make it the best you can while you are still here. It's a great message, and I give Michelle Yeoh just all the credit in the world. She gives a great performance, and the rest of the cast too. Even Jamie Lee Curtis, like, she kills it, and James Hung in his brief amount of scenes, he kills it too. Like, I can talk about this movie for days and days, but I'm sure that doesn't need to happen because everyone else can say it for me. I like 2 other movies more than this one, however, not by much, because Everything Everywhere All at Once is just phenomenal.
Yeah, spoiler alert, this is making my ranking as well. And I definitely agree with everything you said. It is a phenomenal movie that definitely did its job. And it might be my favorite A24 movie. Definitely the one I've enjoyed the most. And it's probably one of the few A24 movies where I'll gladly rewatch them. Most of them I don't really find that rewatchable. So that's the staying power of this movie. It's an awesome movie where it makes you want to revisit it and enjoy the madness of it.
Yeah, A24 is a studio that I have a lot of respect for. They take a lot of risks. Some of them pay off, like this one. Some of them don't, like Men. Like, seriously, this is like the most up and down year of A24's existence. They have one of the best movies of the year, also one of the worst movies of the year. Literally, in the same calendar year. So there that is. But yeah, Everything Everywhere All at Once, just a work of art. So what is your number two?
My number two is a movie that you've already put on your ranking, and so I'm going to piggyback off of what you said already. My number two is The Batman. I love this movie. I was always championing this movie, even though I'm such a fan of the Dark Knight trilogy. I mean, Matt Reeves has given us incredible movies over the years, whether Cloverfield and two of the recent Planet of the Apes movies. I knew when he was attached to direct Batman, he is going to put his fingerprints on that movie and create something that we've never seen in the world of Batman. And I was not disappointed. He made his movie stand out apart from some of the other movies, tell more so a detective story with the tone of something like David Fincher, and he greatly succeeded at that. I love Robert Pattinson's performance as Batman. I love the grittiness that he brought, along with some of the vulnerabilities of his Bruce Wayne. Even though it's not my favorite portrayal of Bruce Wayne, but I still love his performance and the lengths that he went through to play that type of character. You know, have a little bit more flaws and a lot more flaws in this character. He's more vengeful than other Batmans, and he realizes he needs to be more hopeful in his approach, or else he'll give the wrong message. I love the ending of this movie, and the fact that Pattinson can convey so much and say so little just speaks volumes that he truly is a fantastic actor. I love so many performances in this movie. Paul Dano as the Riddler, Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, Colin Farrell as the Penguin, Jeffrey Wright as Gordon, even Andy Serkis's Alfred. Even though he's not in the movie that much, he was still a good Alfred, and I like the scenes that we did see him in. I love the visual look of this movie. The car chase with Batman and Penguin is one of my favorite action scenes of the year. Even though there's a couple things I could have done without, I think it's a little too slow in the first act. I could have done without the studio mandated Joker scene at the end. That seemed a bit forced to me, and I don't really want another Joker this early. But aside from that, this is a fantastic movie, and I'm excited to see what Matt Reeves is going to bring in his upcoming sequel. And Mr. Freeze, I think, would be a good choice. I agree, Ryan.
Yeah, is when that happened, I was like, why is Barry Keoghan here? He's in the MCU. It was like unless because I honestly don't really remember Eternals all of that much. I'm sorry. I thought the movie was just okay and haven't really thought about it all that much since. But if he died in the Eternals, then I mean, okay, then I'll walk this back. But he's still tied to the MCU, so I don't know if he can do both. And I mean, I don't know his contract situation, but yeah, why is there another Joker already? It's like we just came off the terrible Jared Leto one. The Heath Ledger one is iconic. It's like there's an oversaturation, and I don't appreciate it. It's like Batman's Rogues Gallery is like so wide and deep that the studio thinks it's like, oh, it's just like two or three. It's like, no, you could do so much, especially with how the Batman ends in a flooded Gotham. That's pretty much setting up for Mr. Freeze. Is like water and like the capability of like liquid nitrogen. I mean, I'm writing this for you, Warner. Hire me. Like, no, I'm totally kidding. But the Joker scene just made no sense, and I don't know. I sincerely hope they don't go the Joker route. I hope they go the Mr. Freeze route, or even someone like Two-Face or Hugo Strange, or just do something different. That's all that I am asking for in the Batman 2. Go different. That's all I ask.
Well, WB trusted Matt Reeves on the first Batman. Hopefully, they'll let him do even more for Batman 2.
Yeah, I sincerely hope so. Well, my number two is about a man, but not the Batman, but the Northman. This is a movie that I really enjoyed at first, but then the more I thought about it and the more I turned it over in my head, the better it got. I recognize that this movie's not for everyone. It can get very weird, especially a certain scene involving Willem Dafoe and Ethan Hawke and the young boy in the movie, and it involves hallucinogens. I will say no more. I can definitely understand how this could turn people off, but I'm a sucker for a revenge movie, and I'm especially a sucker for this director, Robert Eggers. I I didn't like his comments about how like his movie didn't do so well and he blamed it on Marvel and all that. But again, consider the fact that the source material of his movie, I think a little bit more of self-awareness would have been better. But again, that's neither here nor there. The movie he directed, I thought, was fantastic. Alex Pettyfer did a great job as the Northman. I love this story. It has a twist in the middle that I was like, that's weird. But then the more I thought about it, just the better and the better it got. I have nothing but good things to say about it. It is very weird. I get why people wouldn't like it, but this is just all my cup of tea. I just loved this.
Wasn't the Northman Alexander Skarsgård?
Yes, you're right. It was
You
Alex.
said Alex Pettyfer. Where has he been in the last few years?
Yeah, it
Uh,
was. I figured it was a Skarsgård, and as soon as I said Pettifer, I'm like, wait a minute, I got the Alex right, but not the last. My bad, y'all. It's Alexander Skarsgård, but he's good in this too. Like Alex Skarsgård is just a great actor.
Yeah, this is one of my snubs of 2022. I haven't seen The Northman yet. I've been critical on Robert Eggers because I found not the Lighthouse, so unwatchable. I could not even finish that movie because I thought it was just too weird and pretentious, and I had no idea what was going on in that movie. So I was a little hesitant on seeing The Northman. I'm glad you're a fan of it, and it sounds like even though there's weird stuff in it, it sounds like The Northman has more of a story I can get into. So hopefully I can get into The Northman a lot more when I do check it out.
Yeah, it's on Peacock right now, so I definitely
Nice.
recommend it. So, what is your number one? I have a feeling I know what it is.
Well, my number one is a movie that I've hinted at in other parts of the video, and it is the other multiverse movie made by A24, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, directed by the Daniels. Yeah, this is my favorite movie of the year so far. The fact that A24 made a better multiverse movie than Doctor Strange, even though I love Doctor Strange, speaks volumes over how incredible this movie is. There's just so much incredible worlds that's established in this movie with amazing editing. Like I was just blown away by how this movie was edited and pieced together while still having a cohesive story. And even with the weird stuff that happens in this movie, I know Brian, you brought up the finger hot dogs, and there's other weird stuff in this movie. There's one universe where the characters are rocks and they're talking to each other through subtitles. And then you have the whole Ratatouille bit, which is easily my biggest laugh that I've gotten out of a movie theater that I've been to this year. Uh, there's still heart to it. Like the whole family dynamic is what carries the film through and through. The contrasting relationship with a mother and her daughter and how they learn to appreciate and accept one another by the end, I thought was very well done. I love the performances. Michelle Yeoh is fantastic, and it's easily the best performance I've seen. I hope she gets some Oscar love. Jamie Lee Curtis was hilarious. James Hong, and another performance I gotta highlight is an actor named Ki Hui Kwan, who started out as a child actor in movies such as Temple of Doom and The Goonies. He was not acting for many, many years because he felt underrepresented as an Asian. But after watching Crazy Rich Asians, he's like, oh, wow, us Asians are getting some love again. So I'm going to try to come out of retirement and do this acting gig again. And he made his acting comeback in Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And he has not lost his touch. I thought he was phenomenal in the movie. He did his own stunt work, and his standout action scene with the fanny pack got the biggest smile on my face through and through. Welcome back, Ke Huy Quan, I cannot wait to see more acting roles from you. I love this movie just for the multiverse stuff, the universal message it does have, and most importantly, giving Short Round the comeback. So many awesome stuff in this movie.
Yeah, God bless that man. He really crushed it in this movie, and I hope he gets more work after this, because hearing about that story was just genuinely heartbreaking. Because I've been kind of a short round defender. I'm not the biggest fan of Temple of Doom. I think it's just okay. But people are like, "Oh, short round's annoying." Like, I mean, he has his annoying moments, but at least he's useful. I mean, how many 9-year-olds you know that can drive? Like, come on now. Like, he's at least, he puts up a fight. He fights off the voodoo kid. Like, he's at least doing something. So I've never gotten on the short round hate bandwagon. And I'm just glad Ke Huy Quan is back. And I hope, like I said, I hope he gets more work after this. But I've said all that I really can say about this movie. It is fantastic. Like I said, it's probably consensus the movie of the year by a country mile.
Yeah, I've heard no terrible things about this movie. I think the only one who thought it was a little overrated, those people are like, it's too weird, but at least I can respect it. It's just not my personal thing. And that's better than saying the movie sucks, at least.
Yeah, it's a little better, but I mean, again, to each his own. There's like seriously, like get on board. It's better than you think. Well, for my number one, it's a movie that you alluded to earlier. It is Top Gun Maverick. Like I said, I've been a Joseph Kosinski fan since day one, and so when I heard that this movie was getting made with him in it, I said to myself, if there's any way that this is better than the original, it's got to be because of him. And yes, he is a part of it, but there's so much more to it. Like, I don't know why there's so much original Top Gun slander nowadays. I've been a fan of the movie ever since I first saw it. Is like Top Gun slander is not appreciated on this neck of the woods, by God. But Top Gun Maverick is definitely better in terms of story, in terms of general like feeling wise. Because the '80s Top Gun was definitely, I could argue, it was more of a visual thing more than an actual story, and the visuals are done very well. But it is more, I could argue, it's more style over substance. There's a lot more substance in Top Gun Maverick. This movie actually may have my favorite scene of the year so far. It's the scene where Maverick and Iceman see each other for one last time. And everything that we know now about Val Kilmer and his battles with throat cancer, just, when you see the picture in the beginning, you're like, oh, that's very nice, because, it's hard for him to speak. You're thinking, oh, he's probably not going to be in the movie, but at least they gave him a picture. But no, you actually see him, and he has like one spoken line where he says, the Navy needs Maverick. And you're just like, am I getting tears right now? Why am I getting tears right now? It's just a fantastic scene. And I love how it ends with Maverick asking, or actually Iceman asking, so who's the better pilot? And Maverick's like, this is a nice moment. Let's not ruin it. It's so good and it's so well done. And like you touched on, the action in this is phenomenal. The final act where they go to do the mission, I was sitting there thinking and when a certain thing happens where Maverick gets shot down, or like, wow, they're gonna kill off Maverick. Okay, I mean, they didn't do a legacy character dirty. This is actually quite nice. And then Rooster gets shot down. You're like, what is going on? And the great moment where Maverick's like shoving Rooster down and is like, I did that to save you. And Rooster was like, well, I did that to save you. And just the moment of is like, all right, we're in this together. Now we got to get out. And so they go to the base, and that whole 15 minutes is just so good. And then Hangman, who's been the villain of the movie, he comes in the clutch. And just shout out to Glenn Powell. I hope he gets work for the next 40 years after this, because he deserves it too. Like, just, he's so good in this. And I love his line of where he says, good evening, this is your savior speaking. I'm like, very good indeed. So yeah, Top Gun across the board is my favorite movie of the year.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. This movie did not deserve to be this good, but we got it, and I'm all the more thankful for it. I would say this is the most cheer worthy, I guess, theatrical experience I've had because I had people in my screening that were cheering, they were crying, they were happy by the outcome. It was one of the most positive theatrical experiences that I've had all year. Probably the most celebratory theatrical screening I've had since probably Avengers Endgame. So that's a really strong, a very good comparison to make there.
All right, very good. So let's take it home, but first go through your list really quick, 5 to 1.
Well, my top five. My number five is The Atom Project. My number four is Top Gun Maverick. My number three, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. My number two is The Batman. And my number one, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Very good. And I had Kimmy at number 5, The Batman at number 4, Everything Everywhere All at Once in number 3, The Northman at number 2, and Top Gun Maverick at number 1. So this was a lot of fun. I ask all of you, what are your 5 favorite movies of the year? Leave that in the comments. We would love to read what you have to say. And I am really looking forward to when we get to December and how these lists are going to change, because I don't know if it's going to stay the same. I doubt it, but it might stay the same, or if it could be completely different. Who really knows? It's going to be really fun because for a while, Jackass Forever was my favorite movie of the year. And that movie was so fun. I can't complain. Like, it just, I didn't know I needed to see Johnny Knoxville get run over by a bull, but here we are. It's just, it's interesting to see how it evolves like that. So let's revisit this in December and see how much our lists have evolved.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
Well, Jacob, that's another episode in the books. Tell the good people where they can find you.
They can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Facebook, and you can also subscribe to my 2 YouTube channels. My second channel is Storytime with Jacob, where I do book reviews and read-alongs. I've been a little inactive on that channel this past week because I didn't want to record while I was under the weather when I had COVID, but more videos will be coming in the next week or so. And then on my main channel is where I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos, and all that good stuff. And as Ryan alluded to, I reviewed Buddy Buddy this past week, the last of my Billy Wilder reviews. That was a terrible disaster of a movie. And then other reviews I got on my channel. A video that just dropped at the time of recording was my newest Cinema Roundup video, where I highlight all of the theatrical and streaming movies that I watched in the past month and edit all of my thoughts in one extended video. That video, you can hear my thoughts on movies like Elvis, Thor Love and Thunder, Lightyear, The Gray Man, The Sea Beast. Those are the movies I covered on that. I'll also be reviewing Paper Moon this week in my Peter Bogdanovich director project. And I'm got some more TV stuff coming this week. I'm reviewing episode 7, wrapping up season 1 of Downton Abbey. And a recent thing that I asked on my social media accounts was, what are some TV sitcoms I should cover on my channel? And I got so many varied responses on my YouTube community tab and on Facebook. And the sitcom that got the most requests out of all of them was, believe it or not, the 80s sitcom Full House, a show I've seen snippets of been in there. So this week you can check out my reviews of the first 4 episodes of Full House. I will slowly make my way through that show, and I think that's going to be a fun time. So if you want to check out more TV content along with my movie content, this is the channel to check out all that stuff, and come subscribe and be a part of the awesome content that's over on my end.
Well, that sounds fantastic. Well, both of his channels will be linked in the description. Go check him out. It's a lot of fun. And as far as this channel goes, I want to give a shout out to everybody for 230 subscribers. We're recording this on Monday night. I hit 230 on Monday afternoon. I'm so very happy and so pleased with with that and how far it's come. There's a part of me that is like, oh, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and it's back to 229 again. But regardless, I have the screenshots to prove it. I was at 230, and it's just going to get bigger from here. So thank you all very much from the bottom of my heart. I already have a Twilight Zone video up about the episode called Long Distance Call. I'm finally out of the videotape era of the Twilight Zone, thank God, because that was a miserable time to sit through. And then I'm going to try my hardest to review both Prey and
Bullet Train.
Bullet Train. Thank you. This is the first time tonight that I've lost my train of thought, and I've filmed Rachel's show and now this. So Bullet Train and Prey, I'm going to try and review both of those. And then this Sunday, I will begin reviewing the Before trilogy, Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight. So this coming Sunday will be the first entry, 1995's Before Sunrise. But with all of that in mind, thank you all so much, as always, for watching. That's Jacob Martin. My name is Ryan Cam, and we will see you in the next one. You take care now.